So welcome back to the channel, and today we're doing a predictions video because the February 22nd card, I believe, a lot of boxing pundits believe it is the greatest card boxing has ever seen. Just the names on it alone are absolutely incredible, and the quality of fights on the card are just on another level that we simply haven't seen before. And that is a credit to Turkey Al Sheikh and, Saudi Arabia. They have done so much for boxing in the past literally year. It has been amazing. But yeah, February 22nd in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. It's the greatest boxing card in history. So here are my predictions. So the first fight on the card is Zhilei Zhang taking on Ajit Kabayel. And what a fight this is, a great heavyweight clash. Zhang is coming to the fight, obviously, with that Deontay Wilder win. Kabayel has beaten two fairly good prospects in Makhmudov and Frank Sanchez. But I think Zhang is definitely a step up in caliber of opponent. Now, we know Zhang has a really good amateur record. He's done fairly well in the pros, but Caballero, very, very good. And certainly at the moment, I think an underrated heavyweight. So how do I see Caballero winning this fight? What are the factors at play here? I think Caballero in the Makhmudov fight used really well and effective, sharp bursts of pressure when moving forward. He also used body shots very well. I think these are the two key factors for Caballero. If he can stick to a game plan and use those sharp bursts moving forward, and then either early on in the fight apply the body shots to zap Zhang's energy, I think that could work in the early rounds, or then in the later rounds when Zhang is getting tired, throw more of the body shots, and then who knows, we might even see a late knockdown or something like that. I will be quite surprised if Caballero was to stop Zhang, but for me, Caballero wins this fight. Now, obviously on the other side, what can Zhang do? When Caballero is coming in with those sharp bursts, if Zhang can land a counter punch, we know he's very good at those counter punches. If Caballero comes in, overcommits, Zhang lands a shot, it could be good night Caballero. It wouldn't surprise me if Zhang wins this by knockout at all. It really wouldn't. But for me, I think Caballero will stick to that game plan. He will be smart with his boxing, and I see him winning on points. So that is Ajit Caballero on points. Then we have the Battle of Britain. Callum Smith against Joshua Buatsi. Buatsi coming into this fight on very good form, and Callum Smith is rebuilding really after that loss at world title level to Artur Beterbiev. This is Smith's first major name after that Beterbiev loss, and I think this fight is really going to come down to Callum Smith's ability to control the distance with his jab versus Joshua Buatsi's ability to break that distance and get inside range and really work on the inside. I think if Buatsi can do that, get on the inside, we know he's very good at landing shots there, and Smith hasn't been great. He's not great on defending in the inside. When someone's in close to him, if Buatsi can break that range, I really can see him having a lot of success in this fight. Smith has to be disciplined with the jab. And I think if he is, then that could honestly win him the fight. The jab could win Callum Smith this fight. If he's disciplined with the jab, then Buatsi's going to struggle to get inside. And if Buatsi doesn't get inside, I think Callum Smith wins. If he keeps this on the outside, keeps it at range, and I honestly think this fight could be that simple. Now, through 10 rounds, yeah, there's going to be drama. There's something will happen that no one was expecting, but I think if Callum Smith keeps the game plan really that simple, boxers, within the ability we all know he can do, he's fought a lot better opponents than Joshua Buatsi, and that experience could come into play if the fight does go in the later rounds, if there's chances where Buatsi might look hurt. I think Smith's gonna know what to do in situations like that. Buatsi might not do on a big stage. I mean, we saw him do really well against Willie Hutchinson, which was obviously on a big stage, but this is a bit bigger. February 22nd is just that bit more. And Smith has been there and done it. And I think that experience could be the key factor in this fight. Smith is going to know what to do in these situations. And I think if he can control the fight with the jab, stop Buatsi from getting to the inside, I think Callum Smith wins this on points. So next up we have Virgil Ortiz Jr. taking on Israel Madrimov. And we know how these guys fight. We know how they both fight. Virgil Ortiz is a just relentless volume puncher, constantly applying pressure. And, he'll do what he needs to win. He does not mind getting into a dogfight and getting in there and trading. Madrimov, his footwork and angles are absolutely brilliant. He gave Terence Crawford problems at time in their fight, which is, crazy to think. We see Crawford as, potentially the pound for pound guy in boxing. Madrimov gave him problems. So, I think Madrimov is favourite, but it's a very interesting fight. Very, very interesting indeed. If Madrimov can stay disciplined, he almost lunges in with shots, and that could work really in his favour in this fight. Ortiz has a high guard. If Madrimov lunges in, whether that's to the body and then Ortiz has to bring that guard down, he could then leave himself open to shots to the head. There's a lot of scenarios that can kind of happen in this fight. I think the key kind of scenario is if Madrimov stays disciplined, he will win this fight, I believe, on points. I think the unpredictability of Madrimov and how he boxes could, I think, sway Virgil Ortiz off a bit. I think Virgil's going to find it quite hard to figure out Madrimov, and by then I think it could be too late. I think Madrimov will have already banked some of those early rounds. So my prediction is Madrimov on points, but this is a very, very good 50-50 fight. But I think Madrimov is the favourite, and I do see a points win for Israel Madrimov. Then we go to the WBC middleweight world title fight between Hamza Shiraz and Carlos Adames. Now this fight, it's a really interesting one when you break it down. Adames, he loves to throw overhand shots. These kind of wide looping shots that come around the guard, and they're really effective in previous fights. And the thing is with Shiraz, these punches in these, looping overhands, I think they could land on Shiraz because of the height. Shiraz's height could be almost a disadvantage in this fight, and his height may leave him open to these big overhands. But then these big overhands that he really telegraphs mean that Adames, once he's thrown the shot, he's also open, and we know that Shiraz is very good at picking out those shots. And if needs to, I think he'll do that all night. So these kind of looping overhands, they're almost a double-edged sword, really, for Adames in this fight. I think, if I'm being honest, the most success Adames will have with these is probably a flash knockdown. At some point in the fight, he might catch Shiraz off guard. I can't see it happening, but it could. It's boxing. We honestly don't know. But I think the more likely scenario that will happen, and the scenario that I'm going to predict will happen, is Hamza Shiraz will use his height, he'll keep his distance using his jab, and then when Adames does come in, throwing these big overhands, Shiraz will already have the distance, he'll already be able to time his shots and just pick out the target, whether that's to the head or goes low to the body with a jab and then comes up to the head. There's really a lot Shiraz can do, and I think he's smart enough to avoid the overhand. And we know he carries power, so I am going to predict a Hamza Shiraz late stoppage or knockout win. I don't think this fight goes the full 12 rounds. I think Shiraz knocks Adames out. Then it is the WBC lightweight world title on the line between Shakur Stevenson and Floyd Schofield. Floyd Schofield is, I wouldn't say unknown, but I think probably out of this card, him and Adames are definitely, in terms of name value, that they're not as big a names as the rest of the guys on this card, but Schofield and Shakur is a very, very interesting matchup because they have two very, very differing styles. Floyd Schofield is a front foot aggressive puncher, right? He'll look for the shots, he'll come forward and look to, land the shots, land those big, big shots. Shakur Stevenson, as we know, however, is one of the best defensive boxers in boxing right now. The art of boxing is to hit and not get hit, and Shakur Stevenson does that absolutely brilliantly. And to be honest, I think the only really way I see Floyd Schofield having success in this fight is if he can maybe get on the inside, land some shots to the body, to the head. When he's on the inside, he's going to have to try and break that distance. Very similar to what Joshua Buatsi is going to have to do against Callum Smith. He's going to have to try and break that distance. However, I don't think this one will be as close as Buatsi and Smith could be. I think Shakur Stevenson is just that level above. And I think he'll be able to control the distance. He'll be able to land shots. And I just think the experience of being in these title fights that Schofield simply doesn't have is what will bring Shakur over the line in this fight. I don't see Schofield winning. I think Shakur is just too good. So I'm going to go Shakur Stevenson on points and still. Then it is co-main event time. Now, Daniel Dubois, what a win over Anthony Joshua. There's no denying that win was absolutely fantastic. But interestingly enough, a lot of people are picking Joseph Parker to win this. And there's a quote that Andy Lee said in the face-off, which is, when you're in the same position or under the same pressure, you will revert back to type. And that was in reference to when Dubois fought Usyk. Time. Time is all Usyk needed. As the fight went on, Dubois got more tired. Usyk stepped up the game plan, stepped up the work rate, and beat Daniel Dubois down, really. Since then, yes, Dubois has come back. Wins over Gerald Miller, Filip Hrgovic, and Anthony Joshua. Those last two named there were very good wins, but there is little, I think, telltale signs in the fights, little bits that watching them and you can pick out. And I just think that Joseph Parker is going to be able to exploit these little things. And especially when you look at the Hrgovic fight, Hrgovic landed a lot on Dubois. Dubois left himself very, very open. There was a lack of head movement from Dubois, and the 1-2 straight down the pipe worked really, really well for Hrgovic in that fight. Then you look to the Joshua fight, and well, yeah, it was a career best performance by far from Daniel Dubois. There's no taking that away from him at all. There was just little bits. Dubois would overcommit sometimes, and Joshua would throw the uppercut. He wouldn't land, but Dubois would be there. He'd be open for it. And that's a shot that Parker likes. I could see Parker landing the uppercut. I think Parker also has a very good hook. He'll sometimes disguise that. He'll mix up the hook and the uppercut. He'll throw a hook and then it'll actually be an uppercut. And I think it'll just be little bits like this that Dubois won't be used to. I think because he rocked Joshua so early on and Joshua didn't have time to recover, it wasn't, well, we know it wasn't the best version of Anthony Joshua that was in there that night. Now again, that doesn't take anything away from Dubois. He beat Anthony Joshua. I did not see him winning like that. It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. And, Dubois got the win fair and square. But to say he's a world champion, which obviously is an incredible feat, he doesn't have a lot of experience in there against big names. He landed a big shot on Joshua, and it took him still quite a while to get AJ out there. Now that's a testament to Joshua's resilience and heart and courage. But it did take him a while to get Joshua out of there. And even in that kind of finishing sequence of the fight, Dubois got hurt. He got hurt by a big shot. And obviously Parker doesn't carry the power that a Joshua does, but again, he left himself open in the Hrgovic fight. And if he does that against Parker, I feel like Parker is just going to try and take that center ring from the get-go, and he'll just outbox Dubois. Andy Lee is brilliant at setting up game plans, and Joseph Parker is really, really good at sticking to a game plan. He got knocked down against Zhang. He still got back up and stuck to the game plan and won the fight. Yeah, obviously 2024, he only had one fight, and that was against Deontay Wilder. So it wasn't the most active year for Joseph Parker, but I still think the experience will overcome the youth and the strength of Dubois. Now that is a big statement, because Dubois, coming off the AJ win, is at an all-time high in confidence. I mean, why wouldn't you be? But I don't know. I mean, but there is definitely ways Dubois can win this, obviously. Dubois' jab, many heavyweights have said, is almost like a right hand. So there's definitely a factor of, if Dubois does land that jab early, what mindset is Parker going to be in? I think Parker is going to be confident he can go in and win this. But what happens if there is a little bit of doubt? Just a little bit of doubt creeps in, and then that first jab lands and Parker's like, do I want this or not? He's had a long career. Also, he's been knocked down. Joyce, obviously, that was a tough knockout to take if you're a Joseph Parker. And yeah, since then he has obviously come back and, but if Dubois lands a jab, if Dubois lands the same shot that he landed on Anthony Joshua, I do not see how Joseph Parker takes that. I don't think Joseph Parker will take it as well as Joshua did. I could be wrong, but I think Dubois will rely on his power in this fight. And I think Parker will just be a bit too smart and a bit too experienced, and he'll have set the game plan up with Andy Lee, and they'll be able to avoid that. They'll be able to early on avoid that power, and maybe in round 5 and 6, as Parker, keeps winning the rounds and the fight goes less and less in Dubois' favour. As Andy Lee said, when you're in the same position or under the same pressure, you will revert back to type. And I do think that's what's going to happen. I do think that Dubois will revert back to type, and Parker, he'll just pick up the rounds. He'll pick up the rounds, outbox him. Dubois will get more frustrated. And yeah, I guess there is the question of then, will that play into Dubois' hands? Will he try and maybe fight a little bit more wild, I guess, and try and look for the knockout and really go for it? Will he get frustrated and then go a little bit gun shy? Maybe there's a lot of questions still there. If Parker does create that frustration for Dubois, what kind of Dubois will that then bring out? But I do think it'll be Dubois that is just a little bit shy, that tries to stay away from Parker's shots, and it will ultimately mean that Joseph Parker wins this fight on points. It's once again a super intriguing fight, a fight that could go either way. A lot of people are leaning towards Joseph Parker, and so am I. So I'm going to say Joseph Parker on points. And the new. Then we get on to the main event for the undisputed light heavyweight championship of the world. It's a rematch, and the first fight could not have been any closer. A lot of people saying Bivol won, but it was Beterbiev who got the decision, and Beterbiev, who is now the undisputed light heavyweight champion of the world. Now they get to do it all over again. And it's such a close fight. We know the styles that they both present, and we kind of know how the fight's gonna play out, because I can't see there being much change from the first fight. The only improvements I can kind of see is, I think, or that I'd like to see, would be Bivol throwing more. I think Bivol needs to try and offset the rhythm of Beterbiev. If he can do that, I think it catches the judge's eyes. Okay, Bivol's throwing more. He's on the front foot a bit more, throwing, and that may swing some of those close rounds in Bivol's favour. We obviously know the first fight was super close. The judge just saw it super close. So if Bivol can just apply that bit more volume, that could nick him a couple of those rounds. However, though, there's then Beterbiev. I think if Beterbiev wants to, cement this victory and win more convincingly than the first fight, he needs to apply a bit more pressure, be a bit more impactful with his shots, especially the jab. I think if he's more impactful with that jab, and also looks to put a bit more power behind the shots. We know Bivol doesn't carry massive power, so I think Beterbiev moving forward carries less risk than Bivol moving forward. If Bivol moves forward, which I think he should do, because again, it catches the judge's eyes, it does present a risk though of he could leave himself open to Beterbiev's power. If Beterbiev moves forward, I don't think he'll be as cautious of Bivol's power, because I don't think Bivol carries as much power as Beterbiev. That's, I think, a well-known fact within boxing that many could agree on. However, having said all this, I do just think Bivol's going to find a way. a lot of people think he won the first fight, and I think if 3 different judges had been scoring that fight, maybe they'd have given it to Bivol. We don't know. I think Bivol will apply just that little bit more volume, and I do think that will see him win this fight. Beterbiev, yes, while it's only, what, 4 months or so since the last fight, he's still aging, he's still getting older. How much is each training camp taken out of him? We know he has some very unorthodox training methods. How much are they taking out of him? How much more can he give? Could this be Beterbiev's last fight? I mean, maybe we see him fight the winner of Buatsi Smith, but how many more fights does he have left? Each training camp is going to take a lot out of him. And I just think Bivol's going to make the right improvements, and Beterbiev, maybe the age will finally catch up. Father Time waits for no man, and at some point it's gonna catch up with Artur Beterbiev. And I do believe this could be the night. I think Bivol makes the adjustments, he throws more, the judges see that, they give him a few more of the rounds a little bit more convincingly, and I just think Beterbiev won't be able to produce the same level of performance. I still think it's going to be a super close fight. Super close. But as Beterbiev just edged the last one, I think Bivol is just going to edge this one. And who knows whether we then get a trilogy or the winner fights Callum Smith and Joshua Buatsi. But in terms of prediction, I'm going Dmitry Bivol to be crowned the new light heavyweight undisputed champion of the world. Thanks very much for watching. If you have enjoyed today's video, then please do feel free to like and subscribe. As always, the support is very much appreciated. Also though, do comment below. Do you agree with my predictions and my thoughts, or do you see the fights playing out in a different way? I would very much love to know your answers. I'm off to Saudi, but thanks very much for watching.